For the past 4 years, I've paid $432,000 for my brother's medical school tuition. Every dollar, every cent. My voice echoed in the cold conference room as I placed the thick evidence folder on the table. Across from me, Brian sat slumped in his chair, his face drained of the charismatic confidence he'd wielded like a weapon for years. Behind him, our mother clutched her designer handbag, another gift unknowingly funded by my credit card, while she stifled her sobs. Dean Richardson shuffled the papers I'd provided, his expression growing grimmer with each page. Mr. Wilson, you claim to have access to a family trust fund in your London residency application. I I was going to set one up, Brian stammered, his practiced smile faltering. With what money? I asked quietly. The money you took from my accounts? The room fell silent except for my mother's muffled crying. How did I get here? How did I transform from the dutiful daughter, the reliable sister, the family ATM with a pulse, to this woman who was publicly exposing her brother's fraud? It wasn't a decision made in anger or vengeance. It was 4 years in the making, a slow awakening to my own worth. Flashback late night at the office. The message notification illuminated my phone screen as I finished another client's tax returns at 11 p.m. My mother's group text. Sunday dinner. Big news from Brian. Claire, bring those tuition payment forms we discussed. So proud of my baby boy. I sighed, the familiar weight settling on my shoulders. The desk lamp cast shadows across my face, highlighting the dark circles under my eyes that had become permanent fixtures. Next to my laptop, a stack of instant coffee cups chronicled another typical Wednesday night, freelance accounting work after my regular 9 to 5 at the investment firm. Looking up, I caught my reflection in the darkened office window. At 33, I should have been advancing in my career, maybe buying my own home, perhaps even starting a family. Instead, I was working double shifts to fund my brother's dream while mine gathered dust. You coming to bed soon? Sarah called from the hallway of our shared apartment. It's getting late. Just one more return? I replied, though we both knew I'd say the same thing an hour later. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Brian. Sis, can't wait to tell you everything Sunday. BTW, my rent's due next week. Same account. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. The casual entitlement in those words made something inside me twitch, a small rebellion in a body trained for compliance. 4 years of these money requests. 4 years of just until I graduate turning into, just until residency turning into. What next? I glanced at the framed family photo on my desk. Me at 10, Brian at 5, both of us beaming on a beach vacation. My parents standing proudly behind us. Mom had been a high school teacher then, before she quit to focus on the family. In reality, she'd focused mainly on Brian, the son who would achieve everything she'd given up. Dad, the steady engineer, worked 60-hour weeks to keep us comfortable but was rarely present emotionally. Let your mother handle the kids, he'd say when difficult conversations arose. His solution to family tension was always the same: retreat to his study with the newspaper. The memory of how this all started played in my mind like a worn-out movie, Mom and Dad sitting me down right after Brian got his acceptance letter, their faces painted with that particular blend of pride and worry. We just can't afford it, Mom had said, wringing her hands. But he's so brilliant, Claire. He could be such an amazing doctor. Dad had cleared his throat awkwardly. You're so responsible with money, sweetheart. Always have been. And you're doing so well at your job, Mom added, her eyes already calculating what she could extract from me. I'd agreed before they even asked. Because that's what good daughters do, right? Even as a child, I'd been the responsible one. Look after your brother, they'd say whenever they left the house. You're the sensible one. The praise conditioned me, shaped me into the person who would later surrender her life savings without question. My phone rang, startling me from the memory. It was Sarah. I can hear you thinking from my room, she said when I picked up. What's wrong? Family dinner Sunday. Mom wants me to bring tuition paperwork again. Claire, you've already paid for. I know. And your promotion? I know, Sarah. There was a pause. Want me to come with? I could fake an emergency halfway through. I laughed despite myself. Thanks, but I'll manage. It's just dinner. Sarah didn't understand family obligation the way I did. Her immigrant parents had instilled independence in her from an early age. My father always said, she told me once, I brought you to America so you could build your own life, not mine. That philosophy was foreign to the Wilson family dynamic. After hanging up, I opened my banking app. The numbers stared back at me. My savings account barely breaking 5 figures. My investment account depleted from the last tuition payment. My retirement fund? Better not to look. My phone pinged with another message from Mom. Don't forget the forms. Brian's so excited to discuss his future plans. Future plans. The words sat heavy in my stomach. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a folder labeled Bryan Medical School. Inside were neat rows of numbers, each representing another piece of my life I'd sacrificed for my brother's dream. Tuition payments, book fees, rent checks, car insurance, all carefully documented in my accountant's handwriting. Sarah appeared in my doorway, arms crossed. You know what your problem is? My inability to say no? My inability to see how much I'm worth. She walked over and closed my laptop. Bed now. Whatever Sunday brings, you'll need sleep to face it. I nodded, but as I got ready for bed, Mom's text kept flashing through my mind. Bring those forms. Like I was just the family banker, the ATM with a pulse. At the office the next day, the morning light filtered through the downtown skyscrapers as I reviewed financial projections at my desk. My supervisor, Victoria, stopped by, her tailored suit and confident posture reminding me of everything I admired and everything I wasn't allowing myself to become. Claire, that analysis you did for the Morgan account? Brilliant work. Have you given any thought to that senior position we discussed? I felt a familiar pang of regret. I'm still considering it. It would mean relocating to the Boston office, she continued. But the salary increase would be substantial. My heart raced at the possibility. Victoria had been the first female director in the firm's history, breaking through the glass ceiling with determination and skill. She'd taken me under her wing early, seeing something in me that I sometimes forgot was there. You remind me of myself 20 years ago, she told me once. Except you're smarter. She never asked about my family situation directly, but I sensed she understood the invisible chains. Then my phone buzzed. Another text from Brian about Sunday dinner. I'll let you know soon, I told Victoria. But we both knew what my answer would be. It had been the same answer for 4 years. Not now. Not yet. Maybe next time. As I watched Victoria walk away, something shifted inside me. Maybe it was the weight of all those late nights catching up to me. Maybe it was the realization that I'd turned down 3 promotions in 4 years. Or maybe it was just time. I picked up my phone and typed a response to Brian. Yes, I'll bring the forms on Sunday. But for the first time, I wasn't sure what I'd be signing. Sarah's words echoed in my head. Your inability to see how much you're worth. Sunday was coming, and something told me it wouldn't be just another family dinner. Getting ready for Sunday dinner, I stood before my closet on Sunday afternoon, pulling out and replacing outfits with growing frustration. What does one wear to a revolution? Because that's what was building inside me, a quiet rebellion against years of exploitation. Is this too formal? I asked Sarah, holding up a blazer. Mom might think I'm showing off. Since when do you dress for your mother's approval? Sarah counted, looking up from her laptop. She had a point. Even my wardrobe choices were filtered through the lens of family expectations. The navy blue dress I finally selected was modest enough to avoid criticism, but professional enough to make me feel armored. As I applied minimal makeup, I studied my reflection. The face looking back at me belonged to a woman who had postponed her life for someone else's. Brown eyes that had once sparkled with ambition now carried a perpetual hint of exhaustion. I touched the faint lines forming at their corners, badges of stress earned before their time. What will you do if he asks for more? Sarah questioned, leaning against the bathroom doorframe. I don't know, I admitted, though something resolute was forming behind my sternum. But I'm taking all the documentation with me. The nuclear option? Sarah raised an eyebrow. I capped my lipstick. Let's call it the truth option. The family dinner. Margaret Wilson's pot roast filled the house with a familiar aroma as I stepped through the front door, forms tucked under my arm. The good china was out, always a sign that Brian was the focus of tonight's celebration. There's my responsible girl. Mom rushed to hug me, then immediately reached for the folder. Let's get the boring paperwork out of the way before dinner. Her pearls gleamed at her throat, a Christmas gift from Dad years ago when they could still afford such luxuries. Before Brian's education had drained the family coffers. Before I became the solution to their financial woes. I held on to the folder. Maybe we should eat first. Brian bounded down the stairs, designer watch glinting on his wrist, a graduation gift to himself he'd put on my credit card last month. Sis, wait till you hear my news. At 28, my brother had the carefree demeanor of someone half his age. His charm had always been his greatest asset and most dangerous weapon. As children, it was Brian who could talk us out of trouble with a smile, while I stood by, serious and responsible. Dad emerged from his study, newspaper tucked under his arm as always, his shield against emotional confrontation. There's my two successful children, he said. But his proud smile was aimed at Brian. We gathered around the dining table, Mom's best tablecloth spread beneath steaming dishes. I noticed the wine was my favorite red. A bad sign. Mom only served my preferred wine when she wanted something significant. So Brian, Mom prompted, barely waiting for everyone to sit. Tell Claire your exciting news. I've decided on my specialty track, he announced, helping himself to a large portion of roast before anyone else could serve themselves. Oh, honey, tell them which one. Mom practically bounced in her seat, her pride palpable. Neurosurgery. He beamed. It's incredibly competitive, but Dr. Phillips says I have real potential. That's ambitious, I said carefully, calculating the extra years of training in my head. Years of continued financial support. It's perfect for him, Mom interjected. My brilliant boy. Saving lives. I studied my mother as she gazed adoringly at her son. Margaret Wilson had been a dedicated high school English teacher until Brian was born. She'd never returned to the classroom, channeling all her ambitions into her children, primarily Brian. Her own mother had emphasized the importance of having a son to carry on the family name, and Mom had internalized that message thoroughly. Brian nodded, helping himself to a second serving before others had finished their first. The thing is, it's going to be intense. Like, really intense. I won't have time for any side jobs during residency. The room went quiet except for the clink of silverware. I felt it coming. Actually, he continued, I'll need to focus completely on my studies. No distractions. You understand, right, Claire? I set down my fork. Understand what? Well, you've been so amazing with handling all the, practical stuff. And since you're settled in your career. Settled? The word tasted bitter. Like failure. You know what I mean. You're stable, established, and it's not like you have a family to support or anything. Mom jumped in. What your brother means is that this is such an incredible opportunity, and you've always been so good with money, sweetheart. Good with money? I repeated slowly. You mean good at giving it away? Now, Claire, Dad warned, his tone carrying that familiar. Don't rock the boat edge. Robert Wilson had spent his career as a structural engineer, ensuring buildings wouldn't collapse. He approached family dynamics the same way, patch the cracks, avoid the confrontation, maintain the illusion of stability at all costs. As a child, I'd adored my father. He taught me math at the kitchen table, praised my academic achievements, called me his little princess. But as Brian grew, Dad's attention shifted. His son would carry on the Wilson name, after all. I became the reliable one, the one who didn't need attention because I was so mature for my age. Brian leaned forward, his face arranged in that earnest expression he perfected over years of getting his way. I've been looking at apartments near the hospital. There's this perfect place. It's a bit pricey, but the location would really help with my schedule. Have you looked at the numbers? I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. That's what the forms are for. Mom reached for my folder again. We can work it all out tonight. I pulled the folder closer. These aren't approval forms. What do you mean? Brian's smile faltered. I opened the folder and spread out 4 years of receipts, bank statements, and transfer records across Mom's precious tablecloth. This is everything I've paid for. Every dollar, every cent. Claire, please. That started, but I cut him off. $432,000, I said. That's not including the car, the rent, or the credit cards. The silence was deafening. But that's what family does, Brian said weakly. We support each other. Support? I laughed, and the sound surprised even me. When's the last time any of you asked about my life, my dreams? Did you know I was offered a promotion last week? A director position in Boston? That's wonderful, dear, Mom said quickly. But right now, we need to focus on Brian, like always. Like always. Those two words encapsulated my entire existence in the Wilson family. I stood up, gathering the papers. I'm done. Done? Brian's voice cracked. What do you mean, done? I mean, done. Finished. No more payments. No more support. No more putting my life on hold. You can't do this. Mom's voice rose. He's your brother. Yes, he is. And he's also an adult who can figure out his own finances. I walked to the door, then turned back. Oh, and Brian? Hope you enjoyed the Last Supper. Claire. Mom called after me. Don't you dare walk out. What will people think? I paused at the door. They'll think exactly what I should have realized years ago. That I'm not an ATM. I'm a person. The aftermath. The drive home was a blur. My phone exploded with messages. Mom, Dad, Brian, all demanding I come back. All insisting I was being selfish. When I walked into my apartment, Sarah took one look at my face and grabbed 2 wine glasses. That bad, huh? Actually, I said, a strange lightness in my chest. I think it was exactly what needed to happen. I recounted the dinner scene as Sarah poured generous amounts of Cabernet into our glasses. With each detail, the burden I'd carried for years seemed to lift slightly. So you finally told them off? She asked, eyes wide. About time. I've been thinking about what you said, about my worth. I sipped the wine slowly. All these years, I've measured my value by how much I could give to others, especially Brian. Your parents programmed you that way, Sarah observed. Your mom gave up her career for the family. She expected you to make sacrifices too, just in a different way. I nodded. Dad always praised me for being responsible with money. What he really meant was that I should be responsible for everyone else's money problems. My phone buzzed again. Victoria this time, still interested in that Boston position. For the first time in years, I smiled as I typed my response. Yes, absolutely. Yes. At the medical school, the next morning, I walked into the bursar's office at Brian's medical school, my hands steady as I signed the paperwork. You want to terminate all future payments? The clerk looked up from her computer. Are you sure about this, Miss Wilson? Completely. I slid the form across the desk. And I'd like a note added to the account stating I'm no longer responsible for any charges. The student will need to make alternative arrangements immediately, she warned. That's not my concern anymore. The marble hallways of the medical school had always intimidated me. I'd walked them dozens of times over the years, carrying checks that represented months of overtime and deferred dreams. Today, I walked them as a free woman. My phone had 37 missed calls by the time I reached my office. I switched it to silent and focused on my work, but Sarah's message caught my eye. Lunch? You look like you need to talk. We met at our usual cafe, where Sarah ordered us both extra large coffees. Spill, she demanded. I did it. I cut him off completely. Finally, Sarah practically shouted, drawing looks from nearby tables. Sorry, but seriously, it's about time. What triggered it? Remember my 33rd birthday? When Mom turned my dinner into a fundraiser for Brian's medical books? Or last Christmas when I couldn't go on that ski trip with you because Brian needed new winter tires? Or the time. Okay, I get it, Sarah interrupted. But why now? Because I'm tired of being the family ATM. Did you know Brian spent $300 on a watch last month? On my credit card. Meanwhile, I'm eating ramen to make rent. Sarah's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and frowned. Claire, you might want to check social media. I pulled up Instagram to find Brian's latest post, a black and white selfie with a pensive expression. The caption read, "Sometimes the people who should support you the most are the ones who hurt you deepest." Hash toxic family, hash boundaries, chakra balance, hash healing. He's playing victim. I laughed incredulously. Classic. Your mom's commenting on it too, Sarah pointed out. Praying for you, my sweet boy. Some people just don't understand family loyalty. My coffee suddenly tasted bitter. $20 says she wrote that from her house that I helped refinance last year. The dean's call back at work. Victoria called me into her office. About Boston, she started. I want it, I said firmly. If the offer still stands. It does. But it means moving in 3 weeks. Are you sure your family obligations won't be an issue? No obligations anymore. I'm free to focus on my career. Victoria studied me with a knowing smile. She'd been waiting for this moment, I realized. Waiting for me to value myself as much as she valued me. My phone lit up with a call from an unknown number. When I answered, a professional voice spoke. This is Dean Richardson from the medical school. Do you have a moment to discuss Brian Wilson's account? I've already spoken with the bursar's office, I replied. Yes, about that. He paused. Your brother's enrollment status is now in jeopardy. He's claiming there must be some mistake. There's no mistake. I'm no longer funding his education. I see. Another pause. You should know he's been quite vocal about the situation around campus. Let me guess, he's telling everyone his cruel sister abandoned him? Something like that. The dean's tone softened, though his version doesn't quite match our financial records. After hanging up, I opened my laptop and created a new folder, Evidence. Into it went screenshots of every transaction, every manipulative text, every guilt-tripping email from the past 4 years. Sarah appeared at my desk. Your mom's calling me now. What did she say? That you should talk some sense into me. That Brian's future is at stake. Sarah rolled her eyes. I told her I fully support your decision and hung up. My email pinged. A message from Dad. Princess, please reconsider. Your mother's beside herself. Brian's devastated. This isn't like you. That's the problem, I muttered. Everyone thinks they know exactly what I'm like. I thought of my father's pet name for me, Princess. How it had morphed from an endearment into an expectation. Princesses are perfect, obedient, self-sacrificing. The fairy tales never mention that the towers they're locked in are sometimes built by those who claim to love them most. The fraud revelation. My office phone rang. The dean again. Ms. Wilson, I apologize for calling again, but there's been a development. Your brother has submitted some concerning documentation regarding his financial independence status. My heart skipped. What kind of documentation? Forms suggesting he has independent means to fund his education. Given your recent statements, I'm concerned about their authenticity. I sat up straighter. Dean Richardson, I'd be happy to provide you with detailed records of exactly who has been funding Brian's education for the past 4 years. After hanging up, I turned to Sarah. He's trying to forge financial documents. That's fraud, she said, eyes wide. Yes, I replied, opening my evidence folder. Yes, it is. My phone lit up with another call. This time from an international number. Sarah grabbed it before I could. Hold up, she said, Googling the area code. This is from London. Isn't that where Brian was hoping to do his residency? A new email popped up from the dean. Miss Wilson, given recent developments, would you be willing to provide a formal statement regarding your brother's financial history with the school? I looked at the international number still flashing on my phone. Then at the years of evidence on my screen. Then at the Boston offer letter sitting on my desk. You know, I said to Sarah, I think it's time everyone learned exactly who's been behind Brian's success story. You're going to do it? Go nuclear? No, I replied, starting to type my response to the dean. I'm just going to tell the truth. Every single detail of it. My phone buzzed one final time. A text from Brian. Please, Claire, I need you. For the first time in years, those words didn't move me. Instead, I opened my email and began. Dear Dean Richardson, I appreciate your concern regarding the situation. Please allow me to provide a complete financial history. The truth, as they say, was about to set me free. The family confrontation. The pounding on my apartment door started at 7 a.m. on Saturday. I knew it was coming. Mom's text had grown increasingly frantic after the dean's office contacted Brian about discrepancies in his financial documentation. Claire. Mom's voice carried through the door. Open this door right now. Sarah emerged from her room, still in pajamas. Want me to call security? Before I could answer, I heard Dad's voice. Princess, please. We need to talk about this as a family. I opened the door to find my entire family in the hallway. Mom's mascara was smeared. Dad looked exhausted. And Brian, my perfect little brother, was pale with rage. What did you tell the dean? He demanded, pushing past me into the apartment. The truth. Every single detail of it. You had no right. Mom's voice shook. Do you know what you've done? Actually, Sarah interrupted, laptop in hand. She had every right. Want to see the spreadsheet of exactly what Claire's done for this family? Stay out of this. Mom snapped. No, let's show them. I nodded to Sarah, who turned the screen around. $432,000 in tuition, she began reading. $68,000 in rent. $42,000 in car payments and insurance. $12,000 in credit card debt. Stop. Ryan shouted. Those were gifts. You offered to help. Gifts? I laughed. Let's talk about gifts, Brian. Like the Rolex you bought yourself using my credit card? Or the luxury apartment you insisted you needed for studying? You're just jealous. Mom cut in. Jealous that your brother is doing something meaningful with his life while you just push papers around. The words hit like a slap, but I stayed calm. You mean my job? The one that paid for everything on this spreadsheet? The dean is threatening to suspend me. Brian's voice cracked. The residency program in London already pulled my application. They're saying something about fraudulent financial documents. Funny how that works, I said. Actions having consequences. You vindictive, he spat. Dad finally spoke up. Language, Brian. Claire, surely we can fix this. What do you want? What do I want? I walked to my desk and pulled out a folder. I want you all to see these. I spread out papers across my coffee table. Rejected promotion letters. Canceled vacation plans. Credit card statements showing Brian's extravagant spending. This one's my favorite. I pointed to a credit card bill. The day after I canceled my therapy sessions because I couldn't afford them, Brian spent $600 at a designer store. You're destroying his future. Mom wailed. No, Sarah interjected. She's making him face reality. Reality? Brian laughed bitterly. The reality is she's trying to ruin my life because she's bitter about her own choices. My choices. I felt something snap inside. Like the choice to skip my best friend's wedding because you needed emergency textbook money? Or the choice to live with a roommate at 33 because all my savings went to your tuition? We're your family. Mom pleaded. Family doesn't treat each other like ATMs, Sarah said. Nobody asked you. Mom turned on her. Actually, I said quietly, I'm asking her to witness this moment when I tell you all I'm moving to Boston. I've accepted a promotion, a real one, with a six-figure salary and benefits. The silence was deafening. You can't, Brian whispered. Watch me. I handed him a stack of papers. Here's every transaction I've ever made for you. Every dollar you owe me, every opportunity I gave up. We'll never be able to pay this back, Dad said, looking at the numbers. I know. I met his eyes. That's not why I'm showing you. I'm showing you so you understand exactly what you're losing. Your soul. Mom's voice dripped venom. Your family? No, I replied. Your safety net. Brian's phone buzzed. The dean's office. His face went white as he read the message. They're, they're suspending my enrollment pending a financial investigation. Actions, I repeated softly, have consequences. Please. He looked up, tears in his eyes. I'll do anything. Just tell them it was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake, Brian. It was exploitation, and it's over. Mom grabbed her purse, hands shaking. Come on, Brian. We'll figure this out ourselves. Good luck with that, Sarah muttered. As they filed out, Dad lingered at the door. Claire, don't. I cut him off. Just don't. After they left, Sarah hugged me tight. You okay? My phone pinged. An email from the dean requesting a formal meeting about Brian's financial disclosures. You know what? I said, starting to type my response. For the first time in years, I really am. The truth hadn't just set me free. It had given me my life back. The academic board hearing, which brings us back to where this story began, the medical school's conference room. After the academic board announced their decision to suspend Brian for 1 year pending further investigation, an eerie calm settled over me. This wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. About consequences. About truth. As we left the conference room, a young reporter from the student newspaper approached. Excuse me, could I get a comment about the academic board's decision? Before Brian could speak, I stepped forward. I think this case demonstrates the importance of integrity in medical education. Future doctors should be held to the highest ethical standards. Mom glared at me with a mixture of rage and hurt that might have crushed me months earlier. Now, I met her gaze steadily. I understood her pain. She had invested everything, her identity, her dreams, her social standing in Brian's success. His failure was hers. This isn't over, she hissed as they walked away. But it was. For me, at least. Boston, 1 year later. The Boston skyline glittered through my office window as I reviewed the latest quarterly reports. A knock on my door interrupted my concentration. Director Wilson? My assistant poked her head in. There's someone here to see you. Says she's from your old hometown. I looked up to find a young woman, barely 20, clutching a folder similar to the one I'd carried into the bursar's office that day. I'm Jessica, she said nervously. I read about your story in the Medical Ethics Journal. About standing up to your brother and the financial fraud. I gestured for her to sit. What can I help you with? My sister's doing the same thing to me. She burst out, making me pay for her law school, her apartment, everything. Our parents say it's my duty because I have a good job, but I'm drowning in debt. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a familiar folder, my evidence file, now used as a template for others in similar situations. First, I said, we document everything. As I helped Jessica organize her financial records, my phone lit up with a text from Sarah. Your brother's latest update. Thought you should see it. Brian's post showed him in scrubs at a small rural clinic. Starting over isn't easy, but sometimes hitting rock bottom teaches you who you really are. Grateful for the second chance as a medical assistant. Humility growth. Looks like someone finally learned about honest work, I murmured. Director Wilson? My assistant appeared again. Your investment team is ready for the presentation. I walked into the conference room where my team waited to present their analysis. As I listened to their confident voices, I remembered my own voice shaking in that medical school conference room just 1 year ago. My phone buzzed. Mom's first message in months. The church committee asked about you. I didn't know what to say. I replied simply, try telling them the truth. After the meeting, I had lunch with Victoria, who had become more mentor than boss. The board's impressed with your division's performance, she said. They're talking about expanding your team. I'm thinking of starting a foundation, I told her. For siblings trapped in financial abuse situations, like Jessica this morning. Using my story to help others. Victoria smiled. That's turning pain into purpose. Back in my office, I found an email from Dean Richardson. thought you'd want to know. We've implemented new financial verification procedures. We're calling it the Wilson Protocol. Your stand changed things. My assistant brought in the afternoon mail, including a thick envelope from my father. Inside was a check, partial repayment for Brian's expenses, along with a letter. Princess, I failed you. Chose peace over justice. Let your mother's enabling blind me. The money's not much, but it's a start. I'm in counseling now, learning to be better. Proud of who you've become. Love, Dad. The check wasn't large, but the acknowledgement was priceless. Flashback childhood. I remember being 10 years old, sitting at our kitchen table struggling with math homework. Dad sat beside me, patiently explaining equations while Mom prepared dinner. You're so good with numbers, Claire Bear, he'd said, ruffling my hair. So responsible, just like your old man. In the background, 5-year-old Brian crashed his toy cars together, demanding attention. Mom immediately went to him, cooing and comforting. Don't worry about them, Dad had whispered. You and me, we're the steady ones. The ones who keep things running. I'd beamed with pride then, not understanding the burden that came with being the steady one. Not realizing that being labeled the responsible child meant shouldering responsibilities that weren't mine to bear. Present Boston. My phone rang. Sarah beaming from her new apartment. Guess who I ran into, she said. Your brother's ex-girlfriend. She's warning other women about entitled med students now, called it her public service. I laughed, then noticed another email notification, a message from Brian's clinic supervisor requesting a reference. He's applying for a physician assistant program, the email read. Says he needs to earn his way this time. Would you be willing to share your perspective on his character development? I thought about it, then began typing. While I cannot speak to his past behavior, I believe in the power of consequences to shape character. My assistant knocked again. Jessica's back. Says she's ready to stand up to her family. I looked at the young woman in my doorway, saw myself from a year ago, scared but determined. Come in, I said, clearing space on my desk. Let's talk strategy. As we worked, I glanced at the plaque on my wall, Director of Investment Strategy, and smiled at how far I'd come since those late nights doing extra accounting work to pay Brian's bills. My phone lit up with a final message for the day from Sarah. Miss you, but proud of you. You're changing lives up there. I looked at Jessica, already stronger just from having someone validate her struggles. At my team's report showing record growth. At Dad's letter of accountability. At Brian's slow journey toward redemption. Ready to take your life back? I asked Jessica. She straightened her shoulders, nodding. Then let's begin, I said, opening my laptop. Because the best revenge isn't just living well, it's helping others break free too. My revenge wasn't cruel. It was overdue, and its ripples were still changing lives, one story at a time. As Jessica left my office that afternoon, I sat alone watching the sunset paint the Boston skyline in shades of gold and pink. The view from this height was breathtaking, so different from the small windows of my shared apartment back home. I picked up the framed family photo I still kept on my desk, studying the faces that had defined my identity for so long. The smiling girl I once was. The brother I'd sacrificed for. The parents who had, perhaps without malice, conditioned me to value myself only through what I could give to others. We're all works in progress, I whispered to the photograph. Then I placed it back on my desk, not hidden away, but no longer at the center of my world. Tomorrow, I would review the bylaws for my new foundation. I would lead my team through quarterly projections. I would call Dad back and tell him I accepted his apology. I would continue building this life that belonged, finally and completely, to me. Because I wasn't an ATM with a pulse anymore. I was Claire Wilson. And I was worth every penny I'd spent on myself.